Start this meeting in another minute or so. If you would like to present any information to this board, please fill out a card, and we will call you when that agenda item is reached. I see we have most of our body here, so we are going to commence our meeting. This is the Board of County Commissioners zoning hearing. It's Thursday, March 24th, 2022, and I'd like to have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernard,
Here.
Commissioner Kerner,
Here.
Commissioner Marino,
Here.
Commissioner McKinley, Commissioner Sachs, Mayor Weinroth,
Here.
Vice Mayor Weiss.
Here.
Thank you.
Commissioner McKinley is stuck in traffic. She will join us shortly. Would you please rise, and I'm going to do the invocation and have you follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. May we approach today's business as task of faith to do our best within our power to provide positive leadership on behalf of our community and those who live and work here, and that our decisions meet the standards of divine compassion for all. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody.
First pitch on Sunday or Saturday.
All right. In the, several of us have appointments today, so we're going to be moving with great agility today. And staff has said that they were going to make their presentations erudite. Our director has also said that item 6 will be dropped for today. That is his planning director remarks, and we will address those in April. That being said, can we have notice?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
All right, very good. Can I have a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved.
Got a motion by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Kerner. All in favor, all opposed? Show that 6-0. Can we have a swearing in by the county attorney?
All those wishing to testify or speak on today's items, please rise and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, we have amendments. We have Cherry Road, which is item number 1. We just have some corrections to the requests that are on the staff report to be consistent, and the acreage is 9.79 acres. The zoning commission did not make a recommendation on the abandonment, as it only needed a decision by the board. And then on the add delete, TRG Farms is actually item number 4, not item number 5, where we're deleting all petition condition number 1 if the board were to recommend approval. And then I think number 6.
Yes, actually, Mayor, if I may, briefly, Kevin Fisher, Interim Planning Director. So the item that will be postponed to another meeting was a follow-up regarding density ULD simplifications, but there still is an item number 6 under Planning Director comments regarding the Hendricks property. I just want to make sure that still is on the
We'll come back
agenda,
to that.
but that other discussion will be
Okay,
postponed.
very good. Thank you. All right, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda. I have a motion by Commissioner Kerner, seconded by Vice Mayor Weiss. All in favor, all opposed? I have 6-0. Thank you. All right, I see a collection of people filling out cards. Are any of you going to try and speak on consent item? Okay, very good. So we will continue moving forward. Do we have, let's see. Okay, do we have any requests to pull items from the consent agenda? Anybody up here want to pull any item from the consent agenda? Seeing nobody wants to pull an item from the consent agenda, let's do our disclosures. Go from left to right. Commissioner Sachs, on items 1, 2, or 3.
Yes, I do.
You have your mic on?
No, could you skip Commissioner Sachs for a minute? I get it, yeah. We have a new format, so I just have to get used to it. Just skip me and I'll be right there, sir.
Here.
All right, Commissioner Bernard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's no disclosure on the consent agenda.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Kerner?
Thank you, Mayor. No disclosure on consent.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
No disclosure, nothing to disclose on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Commissioner Marino?
None on consent, thank you.
Thank you. And the chair has none on consent. Go back to Commissioner Sacks.
None on consent agenda. Thank you, Mayor, for waiting.
No problem. Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. I have a motion by the Vice Mayor. I have a second by Commissioner Marino. All in favor, all opposed? It's approved, 6-0. Okay, moving on. We're moving on to item H3.
Page 7, item number 4
I'm sorry.
on
four.
the
I'm sorry,
regular
I'm-
agenda.
I-4, right.
Yes, okay. So the item before the board is ZVSW CA 2020-8880, which is TRG Farms. The conditions are found on page 8 through 10. Staff is recommending denial of the subdivision waiver, and we are also recommending denial of the Class A conditional use. Zoning Commission recommended denial of all of the requests, including the zoning variance. We will turn it over to the applicant for a presentation, and then staff will be followed with a presentation.
Very good. Okay, who's representing the applicant? Can you please identify yourself for the record?
My name is Jim Frogner. I'm an agent for TRG Farms and Landscape. I thank the chairman and the commission for seeing me this morning. I'd like to, based on the overall comments in the staff report, I'd like to request the commission approve a remand for this project. We have since found out that we can do some site design. As you know, the zoning commission denied our variances 2 weeks ago. A new site design shows that we can meet the zoning regulations, less the waiver, with regards to the commercial use on the property. So therefore, I'd like to ask if the board would consider and staff would support a remand of this project today.
Okay, who's pushing the button? Okay, the executive director, the program, planning director.
We'll get in there. So staff is against a remand and a postponement. This operation still today, I just double checked with code enforcement, still operating illegally. So these residents have still been impacted by this illegal use, so that's where staff stands on this matter. As of today, that they're still in fine, and it's a commercial use in a residential area.
Thank you very much. All right, I'll entertain a motion to remand if that's the will of the board. Commissioner Bernard.
Commissioner Bernard. Mr. Mayor, I do not support remanding this item. I believe that we should make a decision on this item today.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Bernard. Commissioner Kerner.
Thank you, Mayor. If on agenda item 4, I have a healthy amount of comment cards, if we want to go to public comment.
Okay, if we don't remand, we'll move on to those comment cards. Commissioner McKinley, I thank you for joining us. Did you have a comment?
Thank the
How's
mayor
the
for
traffic
tearing
out there?
apart Banyan and closing everything down for the boat show. I do not support remanding. I want to take care of this item today. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any will to put this off, so I'm going to allow you to make a presentation if you wish, and then the board is going to address this affirmatively or deny it.
Okay, thank you. I feel a little bit like Daniel in the lion's den. There's a picture of TRG Farms Nursery. It's a 5-acre site. According to the ULDC regulations, the landscape service, which is allowed 30% of the nursery size. In the 3 years we've been pursuing the zoning approval, our efforts have been stymied at every single turn. This is partially due to the overall viewpoint of the landscape service use, which is a $1.7 billion industry in Palm Beach County. ULDC provisions have made it difficult to obtain approval, and the majority are located in the AR USA district, not the Ag Reserve PUD. The Zoning Commission denied our variance requests. These requests were a direct result of the commercial designation mandated by a change in the landscape service regulations. In this report, staff writes, prior to the 2019 landscape maintenance was allowed as an accessory to the nursery use. However, based on ongoing issues with the landscape maintenance use, expanding on parcels within residential districts, staff was directed to evaluate the use and, as such, change the use from agricultural to a commercial use. The continuance of a landscape service use that is based on ULDC amendments is a changed circumstance. Originally, when we started this project, we believe we have 3.5 acres of container plants and palms in ground on the site. The state of Florida agricultural inspector came to the site during our request for a best management practice certification, which they granted. They granted us almost 3 acres of agricultural exemption use for the nursery. At that time, there was a small building built on the site in 1982 that was used as a garage. During all those years, it was also used as a building for the nursery, and when the landscape company moved in 2016, they used a part of that building as their office. The 2 overhead bay doors give access for fertilizer and storage of material. The little pink box is actually the building that is now commercial use, even though it's been there for the past 48 years. The green area is the grow area on the site. In the code, a common operations area says, a common area that's shared between the nursery and the landscape service, which may include but is not limited to drive aisles, customer parking, and structures that are commonly shared between the nursery and the landscape service. 3 years ago, when we started this project, we were told that a nursery and a landscape office needed an agricultural production farm building permit. So we hired an architect. We had the plans drawn up for this building, along with the elevation certificates that were required. The permit was issued. 3 months later, the permit was revoked. At that point, we had applied for our Class A use for the landscape service, but the building permit for the farm building, it was revoked by the building division under the assumption that it was a commercial use, no longer an agricultural use. Landscape service in the Ag Reserve PUD is permitted, and there are 24 sites that were previously a preserve area where GL Homes bought the preservation rights for a transfer of density. At that point, those 24 sites were vested for a landscape service. Also in the ARG PUD zoning district, a landscape service is only allowed in conjunction with a wholesale nursery. It must be operated under the same ownership. That means 2 landscape companies can't be on the same parcel. 70% of the lot must be a wholesale nursery. Driveways shall be allocated to either the wholesale nursery or typical on-site activities and common operation areas, which is a landscape service. Co-location shall only be allowed in connection with a retail or wholesale nursery. We have a 3-acre nursery. And the light industrial, IG and industrial, a landscape service is permitted by right when co-located with a nursery. In the AR USA district, a landscape service must be co-located with the wholesale nursery on a minimum of 3 acres. We meet both of those regulations. The minimum access shall be in accordance with Article 11, E2A2, minimum legal access requirement, unless a Type 2 waiver is granted. We're here before you today to request the Type 2 waiver be issued to allow the business to continue. The only real issue is the access waiver necessary to allow the continued operations from a street designed and maintained by Palm Beach County, but deemed insufficient for commercial traffic. The regulation to allow access from an 80-foot right-of-way, which is a non-planned collector or commercial standard, to a 60-foot right-of-way is really a minor matter. We've retained two different traffic engineers. Pinder Troutman did our traffic report. They stated that we have 17 peak hour trips per day, per morning. Simmons and White did a more thorough analysis. They counted the daily traffic. They found that there were 1,523 traffic trips per day in the neighborhood. These are a couple of vehicles that are typical in the neighborhood. We've had a trail camera up on 52nd Place, which is the main street coming off 441. We have seen hundreds of semi-trucks, waste management, pest control, pool companies, FedEx, Amazon, equestrian haulers. I've talked to both Amazon and UPS and FedEx drivers, and they have told me that they're delivering to 17 different businesses in the neighborhood, none of which have a BTR. I found one address that has a BTR. It's called Southern Pipe Company, and they're in the rear. This is a neighborhood. The yellow dots represent residents that oppose our request. As you can see, the blue line in the circle that goes out to 441, that's our daily traffic route. The residents that oppose this request are sited far to the west and the south. They have to drive by our site to access 441 every day. This is not a Heritage Farms situation. Heritage Farms was a peculiar situation. We have a county-maintained and constructed road. Heritage Farms did not. Those companies were large companies, and there was quite a few of them in the Heritage Farms area. There's no question that they were a huge impact on that neighborhood. On the other hand, TRG, which has 4 trucks and 15 to 20 employees, which they also bought a bus to bring their employees to the site to cut down on the traffic. It's a small company. The owner of this company has had the same size company for the past 25 years. He's realized the one-man company, he can manage a certain size. They are not growing, they're not expanding, and they've been on the site since 2016 with no issues, no neighbors coming in, no complaints whatsoever until the person that sold them the site during their due diligence, knowing they were going to place a landscape service company on the site, filed, or rather, mobilized the entire neighborhood against this use. So now we have a large neighborhood turnout that opposes this use. In America, you're entitled to develop your property based on the underlying zoning regulations. Unfortunately, the January 6th protesters in Washington, the many riots that America's had, the cancel culture, we have no answer for that.
I'm going to ask you to stick with the issue at hand, and we know about national politics. Let's stay focused on this particular parcel.
Thank you, will do. The main objection to the waiver comes down to the road. We have a 60-foot right-of-way. We need access from an 80-foot right-of-way. The ULDC clearly states that if you have access from a 60-foot right-of-way, you're eligible to request a waiver from the 80-foot right-of-way regulation, which we are doing. The difference in the roadbed between a non-planned commercial and a local residential street such as Anderson Lane, where we're located, comes down to this much. A non-planned collector requires 1.5 inch of asphalt and 12 inches of subgrade rock. The local residential street has 3 inches of asphalt, 12 inches of stabilized rock. However, the rock is a different quality, it's a different type. So they're very close. Our peak hour trips are from 7:45 to 8 o'clock in the morning. The majority of the peak hour trips that were calculated by Simmons and White over a 24-hour period occur from 6:45 to 7:45. TRG Farms is not the traffic issue in this neighborhood. If we are approved for this waiver, I ask the commission to eliminate engineering conditions number 4 and 5, which require us to repave the road out to 441 and add sidewalks. That's an impossible condition to be met. I've met with the Land Development Division. We've had discussions on this. They have to recommend denial because it doesn't meet the code. However, we are eligible to request a waiver.
I'm going to ask you to try and sum it up now.
I'm sorry?
Can you try and sum it up? I've given you about 20 minutes.
Okay. Change conditions or circumstances in the staff report. The applicant states that prior to 2019, landscape maintenance was allowed as an accessory to a nursery use. However, ongoing issues with the landscape maintenance use caused the staff to rewrite the code within residential districts, and they determined that a former agricultural related use as landscape maintenance for the past 45 years was now a commercial use. We had no way to overcome that. We are in the agricultural residential zoning district in the USA. I find it very shocking that a landscape service is allowed in the Ag Reserve PUD as a commercial use, whereas in the ARUSA area, where the majority of landscape companies are small landscape companies like ours, have to go through a conditional use, a rezoning, or request a road waiver. There are very few, if any, commercial roads in the AR zoning district. That's the one impediment that we need to overcome. So I thank the commission for their favor in granting this request.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Does staff have a presentation?
We have Donna here to make a presentation. I think it'll be very succinct.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Donna Adelsberger, along with Scott Cantor from the Engineering Department. We're going to tag you up on this one because it's a dual request. And let's see if I can run this clicker the way I need to. Before you is ZVSWCA 2020-00880 TRG Farms. It is a 5.11 acre site located on the south side of Anderson Lane, west of State Road 7. It's in the AR zoning district, which has a FLUA of LR2. The applicant is requesting a subdivision waiver to reduce 20 feet of the 80-foot required right-of-way to the existing 60 feet. They are also asking to allow for a landscape service use on this parcel. It needs to be noted that the Zoning Commission denied at the beginning of this month 5 Type 2 zoning variances that were requested for this site. The preliminary site plan, sorry, my computer doesn't like me, indicates that there is a single-family home in the middle of the parcel, of which the applicant does not reside in. There is 4.19 acres of wholesale nursery, and that allows for a growing area for 1.5 acre, has a growing area of 1.5 acres. The landscape service consists of 1.5 acres and has been there since 2016. There is an existing 2,287 square foot building that was the subject of the variances that were denied. There is a proposal of 4,156 square feet of outdoor storage for the landscape service vehicles. This was also subject to the variances that were denied by the Zoning Commission. There is 1 ingress and 1 egress point from Anderson Lane, which will remain. And again, the request is for the subdivision waiver to reduce the road width to the existing 60 feet and to allow the landscape service along the rear portion of the site. Staff is recommending denial of the subdivision waiver as the request does not satisfy the standards of Article 2B 7D 3A through D, as noted on pages 3 and 4 of the staff report. And Scott's going to comment on these next couple of screens for you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Scott Cantor, Director of Land Development Division, Engineering Department. So this use is required to have access to a non-plant collector per Article 11E2A2, which would be an 80-foot right-of-way with a structural number of 3.01, having 12-foot lanes, 2-foot paved shoulders. So yeah, that's the form of the road. There are 3 roads between this site and State Road 7. 52nd Place South is a county-maintained road. The right-of-way width varies between 60 and 80 feet. 105th Avenue South and Anderson Lane are both 60-foot wide county-maintained right-of-way easements that were acquired as part of an MSTU project back in, the acquisition was 1998 through construction 2006. Their engineer so we have plans for 105th and Anderson Lane, and their engineer analyzed them and determined the structural number is 0.23 for the residential section that was built. They did a 3 inches of pavement over 12 inches of a stabilized subgrade. And you can see in the non-plant collector standards, there's multiple courses, friction, structural, and then a base, with the friction and base not being constructed as part of the MSTU project because it is a local residential road and it's in a residential area, not anticipating commercial traffic going on these roads. Next slide, Donna. Okay, so yeah, that was what was really existing. So just to add, to show the typical section, you'd see from the center line of the road, 14 feet of pavement, including a 2-foot shoulders required. There's 10 foot existing. So they're short 4 feet there. And then there's a 6-inch sodded shoulder, or 6-foot sodded shoulder that has a base material under it outside of the paved shoulder that doesn't exist as well. And you'd see a 5-foot sidewalk, which also doesn't exist. So this is what would be required to be out there for any commercial use in the county. And all of the things that I put a little red square around are things that they don't meet. Again, the 3.01 is the structural number with our typical section. And the base is variable depending on the material used, but you go to an FDOT table and it'll tell you. And it's anywhere for a non-plant collector from 8 to 10 inches or so. And there is no base out there at all. Next slide, Donna. Okay, so.
Do we know what kind of costs we'd be talking about to do what needs to be done engineering-wise to bring this road up to a standard that would?
Yeah, it's huge. It's a large number. To do a cost per linear foot, just a real, estimate, not including, engineering design fees, permitting, inspection fees, labor, material prices are all over the place. When I talked with another roadway division, they estimated at least $600,000, not including those other things. And that's with a culvert replacement and redigging swales.
Okay.
So it's hundreds of thousands, probably in reality in the 7 figures, when inclusive of all those other things I mentioned.
Okay, very good, thank you.
So if you look at the screen, 52nd Place comes in off of State Road 7. There's a T, and then it has a 90-degree bend onto Anderson Lane. If a development was to come in today for an approval, we don't approve 90-degree bends. There'd have to be a minimum radius for a non-plant collector, which would be a 45-mile-an-hour design speed, something that this just doesn't meet. So Mr. Frogner mentioned a couple conditions that he asked you guys to not require, one of which was to reconstruct the road to non-plant collector standards. And then the second one was actually to improve this 90-degree bend that wasn't anticipated to have commercial traffic. Speaking with other divisions in the county, traffic, roadway, the condition would be to widen the existing pavement around the bend on each leg, add signage, would probably be a two-way stop condition, and additional striping. So he requested you delete that condition as well if it's approved. And
Would there be right-of-way acquisition as well?
you can do what we're saying in a 60-foot section, most likely. But in the condition, the cost would be fully on the applicant and including any acquisition that would be needed in the event it would be needed. But you can generally fit a non-planned standard in a 60-foot section. It just, the swales would be smaller, and there's other design things you can do to make it work. So the next slide, Donna, we get into the waiver criteria. There are 4 criteria. I could only fit 3 on this slide to make it work because the next slide is the 4th. There we go. And we found that they did not meet any of the 4 criteria. The first one in particular, there were still outstanding issues on the application, and we couldn't with confidence say that approving this waiver wouldn't create another issue with the ULDC code. And then B, C, and D, just the idea of introducing the commercial traffic into a residential neighborhood on roads that were built to residential standards, it didn't mix. So we found they didn't meet all 4. Donna will touch again in a little bit that we did have conditions of approval in C2 in the event that you were to approve it, but we are recommending denial.
Very good, thank you. Is that the end of the staff presentation?
One more little piece and then we're done. Okay, the staff is recommending denial of the Class A conditional use as indicated on pages 4 through 7 of the staff report, where they do not comply with Article 2B, 7B, 2B, C, D, F, and H. And those are also noted on these slides here, and I'll just go through them briefly. The compatibility, consistency with the code, and the design minimizes adverse impact, development patterns, change circumstance. Okay, we did receive several letters in regards to this application regarding the concerns from the neighborhood about the impact of the commercial traffic being generated on the roads that are not designed for commercial traffic. There have been comments made both at the zoning commission hearing and in subsequent emails, I believe, that the commission also received regarding the fuel tank that is located on the site and the potential leaking of that into the water system, as these homes out here are on well and septic. So again, the zoning commission denied the 5 type 2 zoning variances for this site. Staff and they recommended denial of both the subdivision waiver and the Class A conditional use. Staff does continue to recommend denial of the subdivision waiver and denial of the Class A conditional use. Should the board choose to move to deny, they will need to make a decision of with or without prejudice, and so as we can determine what the next step would be. Wendy is going to further explain those when I finish. However, should the board choose to approve the waiver, staff does have conditions in Exhibit C2 for the subdivision waiver, and we do have some conditions in Exhibit C3 for the Class A conditional use in the event that you choose to approve, along with a modification on the add delete. And then I'll let Wendy go from there.
One moment, please. Commissioner Sachs, I see your light on. Do you want to make a question?
Yes, if I could have a question right now. Thank you, Mayor. When you say with or without prejudice, when you say without prejudice, is there a reasonable way that this applicant can cure these defects or these issues that have just been outlined by staff?
When we mean with or without prejudice, with prejudice means they can't come back for a year. Without prejudice means they can come back next month. In our opinion, there's nothing they can resolve in a month. Because the 30,000 feet view is that this is a commercial use and we don't feel it's appropriate at this location. So the amount of time won't change that. There is some site design changes that they can do to accommodate the denial of the variance by the zoning commission, but the subdivision waiver recommendation would continue to be denial recommendation, whether it's 30 days or, 12 months.
You answered my question perfectly. Thank you.
Did you want to
Mr.
do rebuttal
Chairman?
first?
Do I?
No, there's no response.
If it's time for rebuttal, I would like to clarify a couple things that were made in the applicant's presentation. One, to reiterate, this property was purchased as a single-family home in 2016. It was not a nursery or a landscape service in 2016 when it was purchased. If you go back and look at the air photos, the first thing that happened on this property is that it was filled with commercial landscape vehicles. It wasn't filled with a nursery first. It didn't have an ag classification first. It was filled first with landscape vehicles. The applicant brought up the 1982 built garage that was not built for an agricultural or commercial use. It was built as part of a garage for a single-family home. It didn't have a permit, so whether or not he uses it for landscape service doesn't resolve the fact that it didn't have a permit then, and it doesn't have a permit now. The landscape service has never been an agricultural use. That is something that was revised in 2019. Our rules actually became more liberal in agricultural residential zoning for landscape service. Up until 2019, the only way you can have a landscape service was if your income from that operation was no more than 30% of the income you brought in with your nursery. So in 2017, there was zero income on this site for a nursery. There was 100% of any income derived on this site was from landscape service. So in 2016, he could not have the nursery use at all. The fact that he operated at it isn't a basis for us to approve it. It means that he was operating in a legal use. 2019 did allow the mechanism that we have before us today. However, the landscape service has always been a commercial use. That didn't change in 2019. It's something that's allowed because the board and the code recognizes this as a vehicular-based use where the vehicles are stored on the site and any kind of horticulture services they're providing is primarily off-site in a PUD or such. The other thing, his survey of the Amazon and FedEx drivers that said there was 17 businesses within the community, that I don't know about anyone, but I have FedEx Chewy boxes coming to my house all the time and Amazon, and I am not a commercial operation, so I don't know how that is any evidence that there's 17 businesses operating in this neighborhood. And with regards to the agricultural vehicles coming on the property, this is agricultural residential. Those horse vehicles that are coming on the site, they're protected by statute. Agricultural operations have statute protections. They're not the same as a landscape service vehicle. Again, as far as change conditions, nothing changed in 2019 other than the use was more liberal.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to allow you 3 minutes when we're all done with the public comments so you can have one last bite of the apple. So why don't you sit down for a few minutes because we're going to have some public comment.
I will have the opportunity for rebuttal.
I will give you 3 minutes when everybody has had their say so that you have one last bite of the apple.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. We have over a dozen cards here. A couple of our members here have appointments and they have to leave early, probably between 10:30 and 10:45. For that reason, I'm going to restrict you to 2 minutes. I'm also going to tell you that we have seen your remarks both in the underlying hearing, and we certainly will understand if you came up and just say, I like this or I don't like this, and these are my reasons. You don't need to take your 2 minutes. So please, we are going to listen to everybody who's put a card in, but I ask you to use your time effectively. I'd rather have all 7 of us up here to vote on this. We can do it with 4. I would prefer to do it with 7, okay? Commissioner Kerner, would you start calling? And I see that my director would like to say something.
One thing, just to clarify something that Lisa said on the building that was at issue with the variances that were denied at zoning. That building actually did get a permit, get an agricultural permit, because they signed an affidavit stating that it was only going to be used for agricultural uses. When we went after the fact, once we got complaints, and investigated and looked at the pictures of the building had a small section of an office, non-agricultural use, and then the vast majority of it was the lawnmower repair, it looked like a lawnmower repair shop. So that's why building then revoked the permit, and that's why it's now without a permit.
Thank you. And our legal advisor?
I think at this point, Mr. Mayor, it'd be appropriate to do ex parte disclosures prior to
Okay.
public comment.
Very good. Thank you for the reminder. Let's do our disclosures, and Commissioner Sacks, you're up.
Sachs is ready.
Okay.
Yes, I have a disclosure of TRG Farms -ZV SWCA 2020. Receive and file the emails.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Bernard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On item 4, TRG Farms, no verbal communication, but received and filed emails.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Kerner.
Thank you, Mayor. In reference to TRG Farms, agenda item 4, I did not have verbal communication. I did not have a site visit, but I did have correspondence, which is attached on behalf of Raphael and Kristen Ballestero.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner McKinley.
Yes, I had written communications from Seminole Ranch's neighbors, and my staff and I spoke with Jim Progner, Jan Redlich, and Joe Fisher. No site visit.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Marino.
Thank you. I have received emails from residents and filed them with the clerk.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Yes, no verbal communications. I did receive emails and no site visit.
And I, too, have received multiple emails, and they are a matter of public record. Okay, we're going to move on now. Again, we're going to hopefully get through these comments and make it erudite. We not want to know your opinion, but, you know, you don't need to take all 2 minutes. Commissioner Kerner, would you call the first two?
Thank you, Mayor. And to make this as efficient as possible, I'm going to kindly request that you alternate microphones so that we can always have someone speaking at all times. The first speaker will be Deborah Poe, P-O-J-E, to the microphone to your right and my left. And then at this microphone, we'll have Pat Rizzo. You're recognized for 2 minutes.
You're recognized.
My name is Deborah Poggi. I live at 5660 Mickler Drive in Seminole Ranches for the past 21 years. The issue is nothing personal against Jane Redlich, the owner of TRG. The issue started in 2006 when another company took residents with over 40 employees coming into the neighborhood. We've been fighting that issue since and have been fighting the issue with TRG since 2016 when he started operating his business. The roads that cost us thousands were built for residential traffic, not commercial. Seminole Ranches is a small one-road in-out residential neighborhood, not commercial. How many commercial areas have school buses coming, picking up our kids? How many commercial areas have people walking, biking, and horseback riding? Every day, we deal with the employee car traffic in and out, commercial traffic of food truck and fuel trucks coming to fill up gas tanks. Gas tanks in a residential neighborhood. I had an incident on March 7th where the gas truck was leaving TRG, and he didn't stop. He made a quick turn and kept going. I called the company and complained about the reckless driver, and he said they know better, to be cautious in the neighborhood. We received a letter from TRG's consulting firm. They claim that TRG has a concern regarding the traffic. If he was concerned, he would not be looking to change our neighborhood. They say this is Jan's home too. It is not. It is his commercial business location. He lives on Cherry Lane in Wellington, where he is homesteaded. They claim that there's landscapers and pool companies, etc. Well, we expect that. It's a residential area. We get deliveries. We have pest control. What we don't expect are fuel trucks, food trucks, and commercial business trucks coming in and out. They say their trucks are equipped with GPS cameras and monitor the location. Their trucks are equipped, but the employee cars are not. They claim there are a few bike riders in the neighborhood that come past their site. They clarify it as a site, not a home. He does not live here, and he does not know what goes on here daily. I am one of those bikers, along with many other residents, and believe you me, I know exactly what goes on. I changed my route not to go near Anderson or 105th because it's too dangerous with the traffic. We pay thousands of dollars for the roads to be built. We pay thousands each year for property tax. We should not have to change our residential recreational way. We ask you to please vote no to the zoning changes. Vote no to the landscape companies and other commercial companies and trucks with employees. We already have TRG and the other company in the neighborhood. If you allow this zoning change, more businesses will come and we will no
Thank
longer
you very
have a
much.
residential neighborhood.
We thank you, and I appreciate you went very quickly, so thank you for your time.
Pat Rizzo, and I live at 107.
Ma'am, before you start following Pat Rizzo, Pamela Banks to the microphone to your right, please.
Thank you, Ms. Rizzo.
and I live at 10717 56 Court South. We bought our property over 40 years ago. Looked very hard for a residential community that was acreage, and we have horses, so that we had zoning restrictions. We did not want to live in an area that had business there, so we paid a lot more money for our property. The owner of the property in question knew the zoning restrictions and blatantly disregarded them by establishing a business on the property, not a homestead. He put up foliage to hide what he was doing, but he couldn't hide the traffic. He has said that he provides a needed service in the area. I'm a nurse, and I have to leave extra early for work in the morning to avoid that traffic. I provide a needed service, okay? But I have to function within the parameters set by the state of Florida. He's not doing that. Please do not reward him for ignoring the zoning restrictions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Following
Darn it.
following Pamela Banks, we'll have Joseph Fisher to the microphone on the left.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I believe and I stand in opposition with many of my neighbors as well as my family. We moved to Seminole Ranches in 1984, and I've lived there for 38 years, raised my 3 sons, and now I enjoy having my grandchildren come to visit. This is a neighborhood. This is where we have our homes. I am presenting to the Commission 3 documents. One of them is a copy of the article of the Palm Beach Post dated May 2021, where this body voted against the landscapers for Heritage Farms and any further waivers. The other is a copy of the letter from Mr. Frogner's Consulting to all of our neighbors dated March 9th, where he's very condescending about how we live our lifestyle in our own neighborhood. Many of them he mentioned it's his home. It's not his home, it's our home. It's a site. You don't call your home a site. And so these are things that I want you to be aware of. The next is a copy of an email I received from the previous owner, which is a seller I represented in the sale to Mr. Redlick. This states that it was never identified as anything other than agricultural residential. We hope that you will stand with us in unison and vote against these waivers and any other variances that they are allowing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we'll receive and file that. Please give it to the clerk.
Thank you. Following Mr. Fisher, we'll have Daryl Stern to the microphone on the right.
Mr. Fisher, you're recognized.
Name's Joseph Fisher, 10795 57th Place South. I'm a 20-year-plus resident also. My neighbors have done a great job. I'm going to go forward just what I've dealt with for the past 2 weeks. On Monday, leaving the neighborhood, right in front of his farms, 2 of his trucks are sitting in the road with one of his workers sitting there talking. My horn is broken in my car. So I sat there for a minute. I was being patient. I was trying to be calm. Finally opened up my window and whistled. They looked back at me, giggled a little bit, and sat there for another 30 seconds. I counted it. So yes, you do cause lots of traffic in our neighborhood. We have to deal with this on a regular basis. They also claim that there's not a problem with the width of the roads. It's okay. In the past year alone, my tires have had to hit the grass at least a half a dozen times for these trucks because they don't care about us. They come down the road. They're bigger than us. They don't care about the cars. So we've actually had to hit the grass to get away from the trucks. On top of it, our roads are now washboards. We paid for our roads. They're washboards up until the end of the landscaping business. There's potholes everywhere. And on top of it, our neighborhood used to be beautiful. You come in, there was never trash. Since the landscape companies come in, from 441 straight through to their property, there's always garbage on our roads. Pam is amazing. She walks the streets and she picks it up for us all the time. But it's unfortunate. We should not have to deal with this. This is a beautiful residential neighborhood. I moved there for the same exact reason they all did. I have 2 children I raised there. I'm going to have grandchildren there. I ride my bicycles that I avoid their area unless it's after 5 o'clock at night. It's unacceptable, and I'm just asking you, please, to keep our beautiful residential neighborhood a beautiful residential neighborhood, and please get rid of these people. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. We appreciate your remarks.
Following Mr. Stern, we'll have, and I apologize in advance, I think it's Jacqueline Gilman from 10727 Anderson Lane. Sorry, I apologize. And we'll have you at this microphone to your left, ma'am.
Mr. Stern, you're recognized.
Thank you. My name is Daryl Stern. I live at 10846 58th Road South, 33449. I had a business that was over wells, and when I was in business and stuff like that there, we had to put up a 6-foot barrier around all of our walls. Any chemicals oil, gasoline, any kind of chemicals had to be in containers in case there was a hole in anything that it could not escape into the property. The other thing is, you know, I ride a bicycle, and to ride a bicycle comfortably for me is around 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning, so it's cool. I got run off the road. I quit riding in that area, and now I got to ride in the heat of the day so they can get in and out of their property that they shouldn't be there. And it's terrible, you know. To me, you know, you put up with 60 to 70 cars coming into our neighborhood, you know, like he said, Joe said, they drive down the center of the road. They could care less whether you're there or not. The trucks, they're terrible. They'll give you maybe 3 foot or less, and they'll dang near run over you when you're riding. So I had to quit riding in those times. Now I ride in the heat of the day. And I think that's wrong where I have to do that when I'm in my residential neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. We appreciate your remarks.
Next, we'll have Rafael Ballestero to the microphone to your right, please.
You are recognized.
Joyce Kaufman. I live at 10727 Anderson Lane. And TRG is directly across the street from me. So I feel that it is a business. I've lived there for 25 years, and I will really object to it. And thank you.
Thank you so much for your remarks.
Following Mr. Ballestero, we'll have Jan Redlick to the microphone to your left, please.
Mr. Ballestero, you are recognized.
Thank you. My wife, Kristen, and myself have built our home there in 1996. We chose it because it was a safe neighborhood. It had a nice rural country feel. We raised our 2 boys there. We look forward to having our future grandchildren visit us there. The county has a comprehensive plan which helps to segregate or differentiate between residential and commercial. You know, when you have a commercial use type thing, you have to have the upgrades of the roads and the sidewalks and street lights and those things, which appears challenging in this case. Furthermore, the fuel tanks on the property is of grave concern. They're large tanks. If they leak, it can contaminate our water supply, which we're on well and septic. So we just ask you to please vote no to the variance request, and I'll keep it short. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for your remarks.
Is there a Jan Redlick that would like to speak? Oh, yes, sir. So we'll have you here at this microphone, and following Mr. Redlick, we'll have Mr. George Cummins to the microphone to the left, please.
Thank you, Mr. Redlick. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Jan Redlick. I'm the owner of TRG Farms and TRG Landscape. I don't disagree with a lot of what my neighbors are saying. I think what's being missed here is there was no sinister plan to come in and ruin a beautiful neighborhood. I agree, it's beautiful. When I was buying the property or looking for a property to run my business, I did do my due diligence. I think the staff said, maybe suggested that I hadn't. All I found one paragraph that stated landscape companies can be run as an accessory to a nursery. We're all here today because I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to run a legitimate business. I don't know many landscape companies that are fully legit. I think Palm Beach County has a huge opportunity in offering us a means by which we can realistically run our businesses. I went into the neighborhood because it had that ag designation, and I knew I could start a nursery, so I could properly do things. By getting rid of me, the neighborhood is not solving many of their problems. There's other landscapers there, and they're not intent on doing the right thing. They intend to stay in the shadows, like most landscape companies do, because there is no legal means to run a landscape company in Palm Beach County. And I plead that if anything comes out of this meeting, that the zoning department, together with the county commissioners, find a way to where landscape companies are legitimized. We're almost a $2 billion a year business in Palm Beach County. When you pick somebody up at the airport on the way home, what's the first thing people say? My gosh, it's landscaped, it's beautiful, it's manicured. That's us, that's me. I don't mean any ill to my neighbors. I understand and I respect many of the things that they're saying. I just want to exist. I want to be able to run my business and do it legitimately and legally. I don't mean to impose on anyone. Thank you, and I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Redlick. We appreciate your remarks.
George Cummins purchased my property in 1993. I'm an airline pilot. I moved to a residential area for a reason. Is it residential versus commercial for a reason? TRG, although trying to do the right thing, came in this neighborhood, and we have another problem. He saw this other landscape company who's still operating as a landscape company on the corner, which gives us a lot of grief, and he was operating as a landscape company, still is, and getting fined, I understand, and operating in the county, I'm sorry, I think it's Total Care, and they're continuing operating. I don't know what the going on with the county and zoning is on that. Variants are used to enhance properties, not negatively impact them. TRG knew this, the zoning of this property when they bought it. Variances could be a financial gain to him and our detriment. We live in a country where we are free to do things, but limited to do things that cannot be detrimental to others. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your remarks.
Thank you, Mayor. That concludes the public speaking portion. I do have a couple cards, non-speaking cards. Will Harrison Kirk opposes. Mr. Kirk has asked to donate his time, and unfortunately, well, the custom is, and the mayor does not allow that. Gerard Van DeLu opposes. Too much traffic and damage to the road. William Banks opposes. He's lived here 38 years and has raised his family. Does not want to. It does not support the item. Kristen Ballestero opposes a variance request by TRG. We are a residential neighborhood. If TRG is allowed to do this, then that gives the other landscapers the same right and will change our neighborhood drastically. Susan Swan opposes, and this is a residential area rapidly becoming very congested. Jeffrey Adams, non-speaking without indication as to support or oppose. Lori Schwank opposes. Mark Lassica opposes. June Stoffel opposes. Alyssa Fisher did not indicate. And then finally, John Schwank opposes.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, as I said, I'll allow you another 3 minutes to the petitioner. I would focus your remarks, if you wish to make any, on the issue that's been raised, obviously, by the community, that you are impacting the residential character of the community adversely. And you'll have 3 minutes.
That's typical daily traffic. That semi-horse trailer, our trail cam, picked up 9 semi-trucks coming in one morning. Okay, those trucks weigh up to 60,000 pounds. When you talk about the road, in the staff report, the project stated by the Land Development Department says the project will have an insignificant impact per the definitions of the traffic performance standards on the area roadways, and no roadway improvements for TPS are required. There's that. This particular variance, I've seen a number of these road waivers go out. This particular variance was approved for access to a 30-foot and a 40-foot right-of-way in lieu of an 80-foot right-of-way when they had almost 4,000 trips over and above the allowed amount. This variance was approved. The people that spoke in opposition, the 2 little red dots next to our site, both neighbors provided letters of support. You would think they would have something bad to say, but they don't. The neighbors that did oppose this project, they talk about leaky fuel tanks. We lease our fuel tanks. They're serviced every month. They're the latest technology. They're used for equipment. Our trucks are not filling up there every day. The other thing is children playing in the streets, grandchildren in the streets. Everybody in these neighborhoods has acreage. I've never seen a child in the street. I've seen a few bike riders. Of course, people driving a car are aware of bike riders. The Palm Beach Sheriff's office has no accident reports going back 10 years in this neighborhood. 10 years, no accidents. Sure, children can play in the streets, but when you look down on the south part of the site, where the majority of the opposition is, those streets are dead end. Apparently, they're safe for children to play in the streets. I don't let my children play in the streets. I really ask this commission for approval on this project. There's 16 employees on this project that support their families. Yes, they're all Hispanic. The owner of this business has been in business 25 years without any violations other than this current one. He has no plans to expand. The code clearly allows the eligibility to request the waiver from the 80-foot to the 60-foot right-of-way.
Okay, that's your 3 minutes. Commissioner Bernard, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Although this is not in my district, but this is in District 6, I want to thank Mr. Frogner and the owner for being here, for presenting this item, and want to thank the residents also for being here. I do support staff's recommendation, which is to deny the subdivision waiver in the Class A conditional use. And I believe that the applicant has not met the waiver requirements in A through D. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Commissioner. Commissioner McKinley.
Yeah, thank you. I did have one question for the applicant before I make my comments. When you met with me, you indicated that you bus your workers in, that they don't drive their individual vehicles onto your property, that you bring them in on a bus. I'm just curious where those employees park for you to pick them up to bus them in.
The applicant can answer.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
The question was, you are apparently shuttling your employees into the location where the landscape vehicles are parked. How do those employees get in there? Where do they park their cars?
We have nine cars on site from employees. We have a small shuttle bus that holds 12 seats. That's approximately 8 to 10 other employees that come in.
I know,
The
but
bus picks them
where
up at their
are
residence.
you drive around town and pick them all up at their individual
That's
residences? Okay, thank you. Those are all the questions I have for the applicant. You can be seated, Mr. Frogner. Look, the comments were made that this is different than Heritage Farms, and actually, no, it's not. The issue with Heritage Farms was it had one ingress and one egress, and it wasn't designed, the community wasn't designed for that type of operation within the community. And Heritage Farms, the ingress egress was a privately owned road. The ingress egress here is a publicly owned road, but the same people are paying for the maintenance of those roads, and that's the taxpayers. Whether they're residents on a private road and they're paying out of their own pocket, or they're residents on a public road and their tax dollars are paying for that maintenance. These roads are not designed for this operation. Mr. Frogner, you're kind of making me uncomfortable still standing there. Could you be seated, because I don't have any further questions for you?
Yeah, would you, you're not going to have any more opportunity to speak, so why don't you sit?
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm deaf and I read lips. I didn't pick up that whole question. Mr. Chairman, could you repeat that?
The commissioner has not made a question to you at this point. She's just making comment with respect to the residential character of the community. I'm going to ask you to sit down, and if we do have a question for you, we'll ask you to come back up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have provided great flexibility in this county to try to help out these types of businesses in our community. We certainly have been very supportive of them, but that doesn't mean, we have rules for a reason. And we have rules that prevent businesses from coming into a residential community and simply buying that property because it was cheaper to buy that property than it was to go find a commercial property. And I understand the struggle right now with rising rents and rising leases for commercial operations. I'm dealing with it myself as a renter in this county, but that doesn't mean we need to support the communities that were there first, and that doesn't mean that we bend the rules because it's cheaper for the business to operate out of that. This particular business was not operating as a nursery, as staff pointed out when it came in. It tried to mold that operation to be able to support the landscape services, and I think that we've shown that that's actually not occurring. There are properties in this county that you can purchase or you can lease that are appropriately zoned for these types of operations. This is not one of them. And I would therefore, Mr. Mayor, on item 4, I would make a motion to adopt a resolution denying the subdivision waiver to reduce the minimum legal access with prejudice, and to adopt a resolution denying a Class A conditional use to allow landscape service with prejudice.
Thank you, Commissioner Sacks, and I have a second by Commissioner Marino. I'm sorry.
McKinley.
Wow. Okay, Commissioner McKinley has made a motion. Commissioner Marino has
That's
made
okay.
a second.
She looks like my sister, so we're good.
It's the blondes there, I guess. Commissioner Sacks, you are recognized.
Thank you. Quite a compliment, and I appreciate looking like Commissioner McKinley. This is an issue that is becoming more and more serious throughout the county. And it is, where are we going to put landscape contractors? One place we're not going to put them is in areas that are enjoyed by residents. And I want to thank all the residents for coming out today. But I do want, and I want to thank the staff, because this is a very important issue that I'm going to see even in my district, with the issue of landscape contractors. We do all like to have manicured lawns and property, and we all enjoy them. I live in an area very similar to where you all live, in Horseshoe Acres, and it is a pressing issue that we must address. And I really thank the staff for digging into this in terms of what they did, and I appreciate it. And to the landscape contractor, I will help in whatever way I can as a county commissioner to find spots for landscape contractors to do and continue to do business. This is not the spot. So this is for residents and for horses and for children and grandchildren to enjoy, and this is part of our wonderful system of government that y'all came out. I appreciate what you said, the business owner, and I mostly appreciate also what the staff has done in this. So I certainly will not be supporting this applicant. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Sacks. Commissioner Kerner.
Thank you, Mayor, and I support the motions put forth by Commissioner McKinley, and in doing so, I rely upon and adopt the findings and professional recommendations found in the staff recommendation and other documents provided by county staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kerner. I'm going to weigh in here, and like my colleagues here, I love the fact that our county is beautiful, it's well landscaped, but unfortunately, this is not the place for a landscaper to be. Ms. Redlick, I think we need to help you find another place. This is not the place for you to be putting this kind of a intrusion on a residential community. Vice Mayor Weiss.
Thank you. I'll be supporting Commissioner McKinley's motion for denial, finding that, in fact, staff recommendation and their condition, or their determinations are sufficient to deny this application.
Thank you. I have no more lights, I have no more comments, and so I'm going to call a vote on the motion, which is to deny with prejudice. All in favor, all opposed, show that is approved, 7-0. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming out. We appreciate your comments. All right, we're going to move on in our agenda. That takes us to the Planning Director remarks. Ramsey?
This number 5.
On 5, we have...
The limited pet boarding update.
All right.
Page 7, number 5, L5.
Go for it.
Can't even see it. I wrote it over.
Good morning, Honorable Mayor, Commissioners. Jeff Gagnon, Principal Site Planner with the Zoning Division. So I'll start at the end, out of respect of time. So staff is recommending a motion from the BCC to end the limited pet boarding zoning in progress that was enacted in January of this year. In short, staff had gone back and looked at the limited pet boarding use, the history, the origin. There was discussions of this use starting around 2013. Code was enacted in 2017. We do feel that the existing regulations are sufficient in order to properly regulate the use. What we are going to do is take a much closer look at this specific use to ensure that there's no morphing into a kennel type use or other commercial operation. We did have continued conversations with Animal Care and Control. Again, we're going to have a much closer look at these applications as they're submitted. Currently, there are 10 limited pet boardings approved within Palm Beach County. I do have additional information if it pleases the board, but again, in summary, we are requesting that that zoning in progress is ended at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner McKinley, I believe you were the initiator of this discussion.
Yes, and I've met with staff, and I support the reasonings behind making this suggestion, so I'm good with this.
Okay. All right, so that, you're going to make a motion to approve the temporary or the discontinuance of the zoning in progress?
So moved, Mayor.
I have a second by the Commissioner Kerner. Seeing no further excuse me. No further discussion. All in favor, all opposed. Show that as approved 6-0 with Commissioner Sachs off the dais. Up, she's coming back. 7. She is giving us her vote. Okay, 7-0. Thank you. All right. I believe it's now time for our planning director.
We have one more. We have item 6 that Kevin will present real quick.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. I'll be very brief on this. So the request before you is the item before you is to consider a request allowing the Hendricks property, which was formerly known as Amberwoods, located on the south side of Lake Worth Road, east of State Road 7, to submit and be processed for a future land use amendment. The reason that, because typically we don't come before you to ask if we can submit an application, but the Amberwoods application was denied transmittal back in 2021, and the introduction and administration element of the comprehensive plan states that when an application for a future land use designation change has been denied by the BCC, the same property may not be heard for the same change in future land use for a period of 2 years. There is a distinction this time. Previously, the request was from LR1 to LR3 on the entirety of the site. This time, the application is for LR2 and LR3. There has been a significant reduction in the number of proposed units, and this time is Pulte Homes, and our understanding is they have spoken to the surrounding neighbors to work through the changes. So again, the item before you is to authorize or deny the processing and consideration of this amendment.
Thank you. Commissioner McKinley.
Yes, thank you. It's certainly a busy day for District 6 today. I actually support staff's recommendation, and I want to thank the surrounding community for sending me a letter of support regarding these proposed changes. I think the applicants and the neighborhood have done a really good job in coming up with a compromise. So therefore, Mr. Mayor, I would move a motion to authorize the processing and consideration of a comprehensive plan amendment pursuant to language in the introduction and administration element of the comp plan, allowing consideration of the same change in future land use without waiting for a period of 2 years after denial of an amendment by the board.
And I have a second to my left by Commissioner Kerner. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor, all opposed, it's approved 7-0. Okay, we have almost done it. Planning Director, anything else you would like to bring up?
Actually, Executive Director of Planning, Zoning and Ruling, that's the Planning Director.
Oh,
Kevin.
okay, well, you know.
But since we switched your names today, I'll go
I haven't
with it.
called you Commissioner Sachs yet.
Yeah. So just real quick, I just want to introduce two folks to you today. Our new Code Enforcement Director, Michelle Pagan, and actually she's been here about a month. She still keeps coming to work, so we're excited about that. First female Code Enforcement Director in the county, so she can perhaps come up and just say a few words. And then we have our it's not technically called a deputy director of code enforcement, but he's our code manager, Rick Torrance. He's been with the county for about 25 years, and he can just say a couple words. But these are the folks that are driving the code enforcement bus that bring a lot of these issues to light and then work with all other departments to resolve them.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to represent you as the new Director of Code Enforcement for Palm Beach County, and I look forward to it. So thank you very much.
And good morning. Many of you commissioners may know me through your aides who I work with extensively. They're all wonderful people, and we try to help them out as much as we can. But if you need if you have any issues, reach out to us. We're here to help you. We always answer our phones.
Thank you so much, and we appreciate your assistance. Okay. Anything else over there?
No, that's all my comments for today.
County Attorney, you've been relatively quiet today. Anything to bring to the table?
Guess I'm doing a good job if I don't have to say anything. Or you're doing a good job if I don't have to say anything. Nothing else.
Okay. Let's see. So Planning Director, does he want to say anything?
No additional comments, thank you.
Very good. Okay. Let's see. Executive Director, you've had your say. Assistant County Administrator.
No comments.
Okay. Anybody on the table have anything to say? Commissioner Marino, you're recognized.
Actually, I do. I know it's a late notice, but I'd like to request board approval for an off-site proclamation recognizing the importance of the 2022 convocation of Seminole War historians, and we're going to be doing that up at Riverbend Park.
Very good. Vice Mayor has seconded your motion. All in favor, all opposed. That's approved 7-0. Anybody else have any comments? Yes, Commissioner McKinley.
Yes, thank you. A couple of comments. First, I want to congratulate for the lawyers up here, my good friend Scott Westheimer for winning the most recent election for president of the Florida Bar Association. Scott and I have known each other since we were 9, and he ran a 2-year statewide campaign, so God bless him. Second, it is my aide's birthday, and so happy birthday to Kelly Burke, who is my chief of staff. Happy birthday to Commissioner Sachs, whose birthday is tomorrow. Belated
21.
Birthday to Commissioner Bernard, so get all the birthdays out today. But on a serious note, I would ask that you all hold the families of the 4 students who were involved in that horrible traffic accident while they were standing at a bus stop early on Tuesday morning. One of those students, she succumbed to her injuries the other night, and we pray for those families, and I really want to thank Patrick Rudder. Yesterday, I asked him to send a team out to look at the location of that accident, and they are implementing a traffic safety study immediately at that site. So thank you, staff, for responding so quickly. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Marino, and certainly those families are in our prayers. Commissioner Sachs.
That's okay.
Thank you. And on a happy note, we have a lot of March babies. So I think my sister to the right, the other blonde here, has also a birthday in March. And the, I'd say blonde, but I don't think so. If you were sitting to, well, anyways, Commissioner Bernard also has a birthday in March, and I'm very excited about having my birthday tomorrow. I love birthdays. So it's going to be a great month. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sachs, and we wish everybody a happy birthday. And Vice Mayor, you are recognized.
I want to celebrate everybody's birthday and also recognize Commissioner Sachs's birthday tomorrow, but unfortunately, you've been outranked. It's my mother's birthday tomorrow, so I want to wish my mother a very happy birthday as well.
Very good. All right, and we've done this in record time. I just want to remind everybody we have a boat show here in Palm Beach, and come on down and see some very interesting and very expensive boats. On that, we are adjourned.